It's your boy Heaven Hollywood for the IE Network. Heaven Hollywood, nothing but the truth. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Get all the other videos we got going on. If you want to be broadcasted on the IE Network, make sure you hit us up. You can broadcast your music video. You can broadcast your reel or anything on the IE Network. Now, we're going to talk about Joe Budden and Sin Santana and everything that's going on with Joe Budden. And we ask, who's behind it? Because if you go back just only 2 weeks ago, Joe Budden was sitting in a pretty position. He was coming out of his Spotify deal. He let everybody know, to, the confusion of a lot of people, but he let everybody know that he was not returning to Spotify. Now you would say to yourself, I wonder why Joe wouldn't return to Spotify. Pretty lucrative, at least we would think. It's probably the most utilized streaming platform right now. But according to Joe, the money wasn't right, and he was going to seek giving his services elsewhere, where he can feel where he is paid what he's worth. That's fine, which is fine. So Joe comes out and does a Spotify show. Spotify airs the show. Now, Joe seemed a little bit surprised that this show got aired. But there's a show where he's talking about Spotify, and Spotify airs the show. He's basically saying on there how him and his crew pretty much made Spotify as far as podcasts go. Not as far as music goes, but as far as podcasts goes. He feels as though he pretty much made Spotify for the podcast, situation. Then, apparently his friend or frenemy or whatever he is, Charlemagne the God from Power 105 in New York, apparently must have called Joe Budden up, and he was, let's say, expressing his disappointment in Joe leaving Spotify. And he was trying to, seemingly throw shots at Joe like, well, you messed up another deal, huh? Every time I turn around, you messing up deals. That's all you do is mess up deals, Joe. What's going on? How you gonna mess up Spotify? How you gonna mess up a Spotify deal? Joe. All you do is mess up deals, Joe. So, Joe took offense to Charlemagne pretty much call himself schooling Joe on the podcast life, which Joe pretty much created, or said not created, but he was a trailblazer in the podcast. Joe's been doing podcasts forever, before Charlemagne even thought about doing one. Joe was the one that everybody used to laugh at and go, oh, I thought you was a rapper. You got a podcast now? And then, look, every single rapper has a podcast. Everybody has a podcast now. Joe's been doing that. And he doesn't get the props he deserves. So, Joe takes offense. He then comes live, pretty much not blasting Charlemagne, but putting him on blast. There's a difference. He was putting him on blast for what he said to him, but he wasn't blasting him. He kept calling him his brother. Charlemagne's a friend of mine, and all I just want to know that I'm a little bit disappointed in you, Charlemagne. We're not fighting the same fight. You don't do what I do. I mean, you over there, you work for Power 105. You work for iHeart. I don't work for anybody. This is mine. I own it. You don't own nothing over there, Playboy. Fam, you don't own anything. You work for iHeart. So, Joe was pretty much giving everybody, schooling everybody on how the podcast thing works. After he mentioned Charlemagne, pretty much tells Charlemagne, him and we are not the same, and put Charlemagne on blast, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, crawling out from under the rock she's been under, is Tahiri Jose. And we love Tahiri, but truth is truth. Here comes Tahiri Jose, who happens to be a friend of Charlemagne. Charlemagne has made it well known he lusts over Tahiri. He says things, he's always making sexual remarks wherever Tahiri's up at Power 105. And he talks to Tahiri outside of Power. All of a sudden, here comes Tahiri saying that Joe Budden is abusive. All these things. Her and Joe have now been broken up, over 5 years? The final time? And she wants everybody to know that Joe is abusive. Joe put his hands on her before. Joe, he punched me in the nose. He's been abusive to me. This, that, and the other. Out of nowhere. Well, of course, this is in the middle of Joe's Spotify deal, and then here comes Tahiri. So Joe pretty much responds to that on his platform, what have you. Didn't really go anywhere because nobody really cares about Joe Budden and Tahiri right now anymore. He's been in 2 or 3 whole relationships since then. So, once that didn't work, and Joe is now talking about, not talking about, but somebody mentioned it on his podcast about Charlemagne's alleged sexual assault case. And Joe pretty much basically says, well, I wasn't there, so I can't make a comment on that. I wasn't there. But as far as my friend Charlemagne goes, all I can do is take his word for it. Because I wasn't there, so that's all I can do is take his word for it. So, this case of Charlemagne, the sexual case, comes back up. Joe speaks on it. And then the next thing you know, here comes Sin Santana. Now, this is right after Joe pretty much responded to Tahiri, told Tahiri she is misremembering. It was her that was putting her hands on Joe, this, that, and the third. I mean, to be honest, I know for a fact Joe Budden has laid his hands on Tahiri before. I'm not saying that Tahiri didn't lay her hands on her, but Joe, come on, Joe. But anyway, so Sin Santana comes out with this leaked audio of her saying Joe chased her and dragged her, and then there's some other audio, some other documents that were not court documents. They were documents that she was writing down to a friend, allegedly Rocky Thunder, and in those documents it stated that Joe is not a good father. Joe has barely changed a diaper since his son's been here, and Joe masturbated off his dogs before because he said the dog was lonely because there was no other female dogs around. Now, whoa. Please run that back. So the alleged thing that was being alleged about Joe was that he was jerking off his dog, his male dog, because there's no female dogs around, and there's not going to be any female dogs around. And he said that Joe was playing with his dog down there and pretty much jerked off his dog. Now, that is troubling in itself. I don't know whether that's true or not. Joe did respond with a video and basically accused, basically Heard said, well, first Sin Santana responded. And Sin Santana basically said a friend of hers, at this time we didn't know it was Rocky Thunder, but it was being alleged that it was Rocky Thunder. She said a friend of hers betrayed her trust and leaked the tapes. But Sin, let's be real, that's not what happened. I'll tell you what happened. Sin, you was recording Joe without Joe knowing you was recording him, and at the same time, your so-called friend was also recording you for her own benefit. Maybe to use against you one day, just in case you guys fell out and she felt as though she wanted to get some extra money out of you on the side. So because you were telling Joe, you didn't tell Joe he was being recorded, this girl was recording you, and then that's how the audio got back to Joe. That's not Joe's fault. That's your fault. And if she leaked it, okay. It was you, though, right? So it doesn't matter whether she leaked it or not, Cynthia. Well, I'm going to call you Sin. I'm not going to call you Cynthia, which I don't know you like that. But it's not, you leaked it. I mean, it was you, so it's not like it wasn't you. So I say all this to say, I believe that Charlemagne is behind this. All of these things, started happening. Now, that's just my opinion. I don't have any proof of it, but a lot of people seem to think it. And Charlemagne does have some connections. He does pull some strings in the industry. And I believe because Joe mentioned him, and I also believe this has something to do with Spotify as well, it's just miraculous that all of these things started happening once Joe's Spotify deal was up and once he put Spotify on blast. I've always told Joe Budden to watch Charlemagne. Charlemagne is nothing but a plant. That's all Charlemagne is. Charlemagne is a plant. Joe, you better cut him out of your circle and out of your life. Because I'm going on record saying right now, I believe a lot of this has Charlemagne the God's, two-tone fingers all over it. It's your boy, Heaven Hollywood for the IE Network.